9 out of 10 toilet bowl cleaners on store shelves right now will not remove that brown ring around your toilet. I know that because I bought every single one I could find, 10 different bottles from 10 different stores, and I tested them side by side on the exact same kind of stain under the exact same conditions. And what I found is going to make you angry because some of these brands have been lying to you for years with the same bottle, the same blue liquid, and the same empty promises on the label. I'm not going to tell you which ones failed yet. Stick with me because the answer surprised me. The cheapest bottle on this entire table, the one that cost less than a candy bar, ended up outperforming a product that costs almost $10. If you've ever scrubbed a toilet bowl until your arm ached, only to stand back up and still see that same stubborn ring staring back at you, you already know exactly the frustration I'm talking about. By the end of this video, you'll know precisely which toilet bowl cleaner is worth your money, which ones are a total waste of a shelf slot, and one bonus trick that could save you from ever buying a toilet bowl cleaner again. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this is where I buy the everyday household products you actually use, test them the way you'd really use them at home, and tell you the truth. No sponsorships, no free samples from the brands, just my own money and my own toilet. If that sounds like your kind of channel, stick around because we've got a lot to get through today. Now, before we get into the products themselves, let's talk about why this actually matters. Because a dirty toilet bowl is not just an eyesore. That brown or orange ring you see forming near the waterline is usually a combination of hard water minerals, limescale, and in some cases, mold or mildew starting to take hold in a warm, damp environment. If you live somewhere with hard water, and a huge number of us do, whether you're in the Midwest, parts of the Southwest, or anywhere with well water, those mineral deposits build up fast, and once they set in, they get harder and harder to remove with each passing week. This isn't just about appearances either. A toilet bowl that isn't properly cleaned can become a breeding ground for bacteria, and for anyone in the household with a compromised immune system or grandkids who like to get a little too close to things they shouldn't, that's a real concern. And here's the part that really gets me. A lot of folks, especially if you're on a fixed income, feel like they have to buy the most expensive bottle on the shelf, thinking price equals performance. I wanted to find out if that's actually true, or if it's just clever marketing and a shiny label. There's also the money side of this. The average household spends somewhere between $40 and $80 a year on toilet bowl cleaners alone, and that's before you factor in the extra scrub brushes, gloves, and pumice stones people buy when the cleaner alone doesn't cut it. If even half of these products don't actually work, that's money straight down the drain, literally. So I wanted to settle this once and for all. I went to Walmart, Target, Costco, Amazon, Home Depot, Lowe's, CVS, Walgreens, Dollar General, and Ace Hardware, and I picked up the toilet bowl cleaner that each store sells the most of. 10 stores, 10 bottles, one identical testing method for every single one. Here's how I made this a fair test, because I know some of you are wondering. I found 10 toilets with a similar level of buildup, some in my own home, a couple from family members who very generously let me use their bathrooms for this experiment. Don't worry, I cleaned up after myself. Each bowl had a comparable ring of hard water staining that had been sitting for at least 2 to 3 weeks without a deep clean. I applied each product exactly the way the label instructed. Same contact time, same amount of product, and I used a fresh, identical toilet brush for each test, so there was no cross-contamination of scrubbing power from a previous product. I timed everything. I took before and after photos under the same lighting, and I graded each one on 3 things: how much of the stain it actually removed, how easy it was to use, and whether the price justified the performance. Let's get into it.
Product number 1 from Walmart. Great Value Toilet Bowl Cleaner. This is Walmart's store brand, and it's one of the cheapest options on this entire list, running you about $1.50 a bottle. Now, I'll be honest, I went into this one with low expectations because store brands can go either way. Sometimes you get a hidden gem, and sometimes you get exactly what you paid for. I squeezed the recommended amount under the rim, let it sit for the full 10 minutes the label suggested, and went to work with the brush. The results were honestly better than I expected for the price. It cut through about 60% of the surface staining pretty easily. The scent was fine, nothing special, kind of a generic, clean smell. But that stubborn ring right at the waterline barely moved. I had to go back in with a second application and some serious elbow grease to get it looking presentable. For $1.50, this is a decent everyday maintenance cleaner if you're cleaning weekly and staying on top of things. But if you're dealing with weeks of buildup, like in this test, it's not going to be your hero product. My verdict on the Great Value Cleaner: 3 out of 5 stars. Good for maintenance, not for rescue missions. Product number 2 from Target, Up and Up Toilet Bowl Cleaner. Target store brand Up and Up has actually built a pretty loyal following online for a few of their household products, so I was curious if this would hold up. It's priced around $2, still very affordable. The bottle design was actually one of my favorites in this whole test. The angled nozzle made it really easy to get product all the way around and under the rim without dripping everywhere, which, if you've ever fought with a cleaner bottle that just won't cooperate, you know that's a bigger deal than it sounds. Performance-wise, this one impressed me. It handled about 70% of the staining without much scrubbing at all, and the harder mineral deposits near the waterline did start to lift after a slightly longer soak time. I gave it 15 minutes instead of the standard 10 just to see what would happen, and that extra 5 minutes made a noticeable difference. The scent was a light citrus, pleasant without being overpowering, which matters if you're sensitive to strong chemical smells. My verdict on Up and Up: 4 out of 5 stars. Genuinely one of the better surprises of this whole test, and proof that store brands can compete. Product number 3 from Costco, Bulk Pack Lysol Power Toilet Bowl Cleaner. Costco doesn't really have its own Kirkland signature toilet bowl cleaner the way it has for so many other household items, so what you'll actually find on the shelf is a bulk multi-pack of Lysol Power. I picked up the pack of 8 bottles for around $14, which works out to less than $2 a bottle. A solid deal if you go through cleaner quickly or want to stock up. This one uses a thicker gel formula with a stronger disinfecting scent, almost bleach adjacent, but not quite as harsh. I applied it the same way, let it sit for 10 minutes, and got to scrubbing. The results here were genuinely strong. It broke down close to 80% of the visible staining, and the bowl looked noticeably brighter, almost like the porcelain itself got a shine back. The one drawback is the smell lingers a bit longer than some of the others, so if you're sensitive to strong scents, you'll want to crack a window or run the fan for a bit afterward. My verdict on the Costco Bulk Lysol Power: 4 out of 5 stars, and honestly, the best value on this list if you're buying in bulk, because you're paying less per bottle than almost anything else here and getting strong performance. Product number 4 from Amazon, Better Life Toilet Bowl Cleaner. Now here's where it gets interesting, because this next one is marketed heavily as a natural and plant-based alternative, and it's become pretty popular through Amazon's household cleaning category. It's priced higher than most of what we've tested so far, around $6 a bottle, and it leans hard into the eco-friendly, no harsh chemicals messaging. I really wanted this one to work because a lot of you have asked me over the years about natural cleaning alternatives, especially if you've got grandkids or pets in the house and don't want harsh chemical residue sitting around. Unfortunately, this is where the disappointment started. The formula is much thinner and waterier than the others, which means it doesn't cling to the sides of the bowl nearly as well. A lot of it just slides straight down into the water before it even has a chance to work on the stains. I let it sit the full recommended time, scrubbed just as hard as with every other product, and it only lifted about 35% of the staining. The ring at the waterline barely moved at all. To be fair, the scent was lovely, a light lavender, very pleasant, and it clearly is gentler in terms of chemical exposure. But if your main goal is actually removing a stubborn ring, this is not going to get the job done on its own. And at $6 a bottle, that's a hard pill to swallow. My verdict on Better Life: 2 out of 5 stars. Smells wonderful, barely cleans. Product number 5 from Home Depot, CLR Calcium, Lime, and Rust Remover. This one's a bit different from the rest because CLR isn't marketed specifically as a toilet bowl cleaner. It's more of a general mineral deposit remover that a lot of folks use for faucets, shower heads, and yes, toilets. I found it at Home Depot for about $7, and I wanted to include it because so many of you have mentioned using it for hard water stains specifically. I followed the instructions carefully here because CLR is a stronger, more acidic formula, and you do need to be cautious. Always wear gloves and never mix it with bleach-based products. That combination can create dangerous fumes.
I applied it directly to the ring, let it sit for the recommended time, and the results were honestly impressive when it came to the mineral buildup specifically. It cut through close to 85% of that hard water ring, better than almost anything else in this test for that particular kind of stain. However, and this is important, it wasn't as effective on general grime and everyday buildup the way a dedicated toilet bowl cleaner is. So this is really a specialty tool, not an everyday cleaner. If your main issue is hard water staining specifically, this is one of the strongest options here. If you're just trying to keep your toilet generally clean week to week, it's overkill, and honestly not the most practical choice. My verdict on CLR, 4 out of 5 stars for hard water specifically, but it's a specialist, not an all-rounder. Product number 6 from Lowe's, Iron Out Rust Stain Remover. Sticking with the specialty category for a moment, I also picked up Iron Out from Lowe's, which is typically used for rust stains, something incredibly common if you're on well water, which a lot of you watching this in rural areas absolutely are. This one comes as a powder rather than a liquid or gel, which was a new experience in this test. I mixed it according to the package directions, which involves letting it dissolve in the water and sit for a period of time before scrubbing. On a bowl with actual rust staining, which, by the way, looks different from your standard hard water ring, it tends to be more orange or reddish-brown rather than grayish. This product worked remarkably well, removing close to 90% of rust discoloration in my test bowl that had that specific issue. However, and this is important, if you don't have rust staining and you're dealing with regular Limescale or soap scum, this product is basically useless. It's a very specific tool for a very specific problem. So my recommendation here really depends entirely on your water source. If you're on well water and dealing with that orange rust ring, this is genuinely one of the best products you can buy, and it's inexpensive too, around $5. If you're on city water without rust issues, skip this one entirely. My verdict on Iron Out, 5 out of 5 stars, but only if rust is your specific problem. Otherwise, this doesn't apply to you. Product number 7 from CVS, Clorox Toilet Bowl Cleaner with Bleach. Back to the mainstream mass market products now. I picked this one up at CVS for around $4, and Clorox is obviously a name almost every single one of you has grown up trusting. This formula uses bleach as its active disinfecting and whitening ingredient, and it's one of the thicker gels in this test, which means it clings really well to the sides of the bowl. I let this sit the recommended amount of time and scrubbed it exactly the same way as every other product. And I'll tell you, this was one of the better performers in the whole lineup. It removed roughly 75% of the surface staining and left the porcelain looking noticeably whiter, which makes sense given the bleach base. The smell is that classic, strong bleach scent. Some of you love that because it signals clean to you. Others find it a little harsh, especially in a small bathroom without great ventilation. The one thing I'll flag, and this is important for safety, never combine this with any acidic cleaner like CLR or a vinegar-based product, and never use it in a bowl where you've recently used a different chemical cleaner without rinsing thoroughly in between. Mixing bleach with certain other cleaning chemicals can create toxic fumes, and that's not something to take lightly. My verdict on Clorox, 4 out of 5 stars. Reliable, strong, does what it says, just be smart about not mixing your chemicals. Product number 8 from Walgreens, Lysol Power Toilet Bowl Cleaner, single bottle. This is the same Lysol Power formula I tested earlier from the Costco bulk pack, but I wanted to buy it individually from Walgreens to see if the single bottle pricing changes the value equation and to double check the results were consistent. At Walgreens, this single bottle ran me about $4.50, noticeably more per bottle than the Costco bulk price, which, if you think about it, is close to double. Performance-wise, as expected, it was identical to the Costco version. Same formula, same results, removing around 80% of the staining and leaving that noticeable shine. So the takeaway here isn't about performance, it's about value. If a product you like is available in bulk at a warehouse store like Costco or Sam's Club, buying it that way can save you a real amount of money over the course of a year, especially on something you're going to use regularly anyway.
My verdict on the Walgreens single bottle, same 4 out of 5 stars for performance, but a lower value score simply because you're paying nearly double for the exact same formula.
Product number 9 from Dollar General, Scrubbing Bubbles Toilet Bowl Cleaner. Now this next one is interesting because I found it for just under $3 at Dollar General, which is right around the middle of the pack in terms of price for this test. Scrubbing Bubbles has that reputation from their bathroom foam cleaner commercials over the years, so I was curious whether the toilet bowl gel version lives up to that same reputation. The formula here has a slight foaming action once it hits the water, which was kind of satisfying to watch, honestly. It gives you that visual feedback that something is actively working, even if that's partly just for show. In terms of actual results, it landed right in the middle of the pack, removing about 65% of the visible staining. It handled everyday grime and soap scum really well, but similar to a few others in this test, that deep-set hard water ring at the very waterline was stubborn and needed a second pass with some extra scrubbing. The scent is a fresh, almost ocean breeze type smell, pleasant and not overpowering, which a lot of you will appreciate if you're sensitive to strong chemical odors. My verdict on Scrubbing Bubbles, 3.5 out of 5 stars. A solid, dependable, middle-of-the-road option, good for regular maintenance cleaning, but not a miracle worker on old, set-in stains. But wait until you see what happened with the last one on this list, because it completely flipped my expectations upside down, and it's probably not the bottle you'd expect. Product number 10, from Ace Hardware, The Works Toilet Bowl Cleaner. This is the one I was genuinely most skeptical about walking in. The Works has kind of a reputation as an old-school, no-frills, almost industrial-strength cleaner, the kind of bottle your grandfather might have kept under the sink for 40 years. I found it at my local Ace Hardware for right around $3, which puts it near the cheaper end of this whole test. The formula is thin and acidic, similar in concept to CLR, but formulated specifically for toilet bowls, and the label itself is very direct, almost blunt about what it's designed to remove: hard water stains, rust, and lime buildup. I put on gloves because this stuff means business, applied it under the rim, and let it sit for the full recommended contact time. And this is the moment that genuinely shocked me during filming. This bottle outperformed every single other product in this entire test, including the $6 natural option and the name brand bleach cleaner. It removed close to 95% of the staining, including that stubborn waterline ring that gave almost every other product trouble. The porcelain looked like it had been professionally cleaned. I actually stopped filming for a second because I wanted to double check I hadn't accidentally scrubbed harder on this one out of bias. I hadn't. Same brush, same technique, same effort. The catch, and there's always a small catch, is the smell is strong and chemical, more noticeable than most of the others. And because it's acidic, you absolutely need gloves and good ventilation. And you can never, ever mix it with a bleach-based product like the Clorox we tested earlier. My verdict on The Works, 5 out of 5 stars, and the clear winner of this entire test, at one of the lowest price points on the list. So let's talk about the full ranking, because I know a lot of you are just here for the bottom line. In first place, and the clear winner of this entire test, is The Works from Ace Hardware. Cheap, powerful, and it left that bowl looking better than any other product I tried, hands down. In second place, it's basically a tie between the Lysol Power Formula, whether you get it from Costco in bulk or individually from Walgreens, and the Up and Up store brand from Target, which genuinely shocked me with how well a $2 bottle performed. Rounding out the middle of the pack, Clorox and Scrubbing Bubbles both did a respectable, reliable job for everyday maintenance cleaning, even if they weren't the top performers on deep set-in stains. Then you've got your specialists, CLR and Iron Out, which aren't fair to rank against the all-purpose cleaners because they're built for very specific jobs, hard water and rust respectively. And when that's actually your problem, they perform excellently. And near the bottom, unfortunately, sits Great Value from Walmart, which is fine for light weekly maintenance, but not for tackling real buildup. And dead last, Better Life from Amazon, which smells fantastic, but simply does not have the cleaning power to justify its higher price tag. The reasoning behind these rankings comes down to 3 things every single time, how much of the actual stain came off, how reasonable the price was for what you got, and whether the product did what its label promised without requiring 3 times the elbow grease. The Works checked every one of those boxes better than anything else on this table, and that's exactly why it earned the top spot, even against products that cost twice as much. Now, before you run out to buy a bottle of The Works, I want to give you one bonus tip that could save you money on toilet bowl cleaner altogether, or at least stretch what you already have a lot further. If you're dealing with hard water staining specifically and you want a natural pre-treatment before you even reach for a store-bought cleaner, try pouring about 2 cups of plain white vinegar into the bowl, letting it sit for a full hour or even overnight if you can, and then following up with your regular cleaner and a scrub brush. The acidity in the vinegar helps break down mineral deposits before you even start scrubbing, which means whatever cleaner you use afterward has to work a whole lot less hard. And you'll often use less product overall, because the tough part of the job is already halfway done. It's not going to replace a good cleaner entirely, especially for really old, deep-set stains, but as a weekly or bi-weekly maintenance habit, it can genuinely extend the time between needing a heavy-duty scrub, and vinegar costs practically nothing compared to a dedicated bottle of cleaner. So there you have it, 10 toilet bowl cleaners, 10 different stores, and one clear winner that I honestly did not expect walking into this test. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this video, it's that the price tag on the bottle does not always tell you the truth about what's inside it, and sometimes the plainest, least flashy option on the shelf is the one quietly doing the best job. If this video saved you from wasting money on the wrong bottle, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because I've got a lot more of these honest product tests coming your way, and I don't want you missing them. Drop a comment down below and tell me which toilet bowl cleaner you've been using at home, and whether it matches up with what we found here today, or whether you've got a completely different favorite I should test next time. And if you're curious what other everyday products might be quietly failing you, check out the video right here, where I put 10 different laundry detergents to the exact same kind of head-to-head test. You might be just as surprised by what I found there. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.